And welcome back to John Bachman Now. I'm Bianca De La Garza. Lawmakers in California trying to figure out a way to deal with homelessness as crime increases there. Homeless advocacy has sort of lost some of its political appeal. The Los Angeles City Council now wants to ban homeless encampments near schools and daycares. The Los Angeles Times is reporting that council members voted overwhelmingly, 13-2 in fact, to work on expanding its anti-camping laws to cover hundreds, possibly even thousands of educational facilities in the area. The new ban would end homelessness encampments within 500 feet of schools and daycares in L.A. To the north now, in San Francisco, where the city's mayor, London Breed, wants to spend millions of dollars to eliminate homelessness, but specifically among the transgender and non-binary communities. The mayor's proposal includes a 2-year budget of more than $6 million in subsidies for long-term housing through one of the city's housing programs. Now, the San Francisco mayor brags that her city will be the first in the country to commit to ending homelessness for the transgender community. John?
All right, let's welcome in our panel to discuss this. Amber Athey from the Spectator's Washington edition is here. Also with us, former California Assemblyman Mike Gatto is here. And Kira Davis, Deputy Managing Editor at Red State, with us as well. Thanks for being here, everyone. Mike, I got to go to you on this one as our resident from California here. There's a pretty basic question that I have to ask before we get into London Breed's very specific proposal. California is going to have nearly a $100 billion budget surplus this year. I double-checked that like 3 times. Yes, $100 billion in a budget surplus. How do they have such a big homeless problem in the first place?
So I've split from my party on this homelessness issue, and I believe that the solutions that our cities and our state have offered in the last 10 years have been awful. We have not had common sense policies on homelessness. In 2019, I proposed a ballot measure that would enforce certain crimes. What we do in California is we just don't enforce crimes. Homeless people are allowed to get away with stuff that if you or I were to do, we would be promptly arrested. And I think we need to start there. We need to start enforcing the quality of life crimes that make life in our cities here in California so miserable.
I mean, it seems like common sense. I think this goes to the idea of the broken window theory when it comes to law enforcement. And Kira, you know, what are your thoughts on London Breed's proposal? It's another first from the crowd that thinks being first to do something is in itself a victory. Never mind the results, whether it works or not. As long as you're first, you're good.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're first in the nation to endure the levels of chaos that homelessness numbers have brought. So that's another first that we're doing great at. And Mike is right. This is actually a bipartisan issue at this point. Now, I don't think we really have anyone else to blame in this state except Democrats because we're basically a one-party state. But let's set blame aside for right now because there are a lot of people who are calling for solutions, including people like Mike, across the board. Everyone's sick of it. And yet this is a proposal we get. Homeless services for transgender homeless. We have at least 160,000 to maybe 260,000 homeless people in this state. How many of those identify as transgender? The transgender issue probably affects about 0.05% of the population anyway. So imagine how few homeless people that affects. This is how we got here. It's just posturing and offering platitudes instead of real solutions.
Amber, I'm going to do something I think I've only done once before ever here on this program, and that's give Gavin Newsom some credit. The last time was when he upped the budget for actually forestry to prevent some of these forest fires. But he actually has a plan to push more people into court-ordered treatment for severe mental illness and addiction. But according to the LA Times, it appears homeless advocates are mad about that proposal. The ACLU among them, they call the plan immoral. Its first public hearing was canceled in Sacramento. Here is a Democrat actually trying to address mental illness, and that's one of the root causes of homelessness, but the people who profit off the problem don't seem to like that. Why is that?
Yeah, it's such a shame. And the vast majority of homeless people are, in fact, either mentally ill or addicted to drugs. And so that has to be the main problem that politicians are addressing when they want to get to the root of solving the homelessness crisis. But instead, they posture about compassion and care while allowing these people to live in what are essentially slums. I mean, here in DC, some of our most beautiful spaces have been overrun by tent cities, and you walk by and it smells and it's dangerous and it's dirty. And these people don't deserve to live in those communities, but that's the so-called solution that our leaders have offered rather than getting at the root causes of homelessness. And it's really such a shame. It seems like they're unwilling to actually deal with the underlying issues of homelessness because they're afraid of being called cruel or what have you. And the left always likes to pretend that they're the party of compassion. And unfortunately, their policies have done the opposite. They've actually made conditions worse for these people.
You talked about this, too. One of the root causes of homelessness is drug abuse. And in Canada and British Columbia right now, they're trying to decriminalize cocaine and heroin. But here's the rub. They actually did this in Oregon last year, and this is what they found, according to a report in the Oregonian. Only 1% of the people who receive these non-criminal citations for possessing controlled substances actually sought out help. So 1% of the folks who got these non-criminal citations sought out help. So drug abusers don't seem to be seeking out the help that they actually need to get sober, Mike.
Yeah, so first of all, I'm very familiar with Gavin Newsom's plan because it was my plan. It was copied more or less wholesale from the proposal I put forth in 2019. And,
all right, that's good, Mike, so I can give you credit instead of giving Governor Haircut credit.
Please do. Yeah, but you hit the nail on the head. I mean, look, we need a mechanism for helping people who need to get help. And I submit that this is a situation where tough love is in order. When you have a family member, some of us have had family members or friends who are wrestling with addiction, and you don't do them any service by saying, hey, rock on, you're good.
Right.
You do them a service by staging an intervention and getting them the help they need. We used to have that in California. It was called a drug court. We would force them into felonies, or we would force them to go get help.
Drug courts have been very successful around the country. I mean, this is a good way to subvert a lot of these problems, long-term problems, but get the folks the help they need. And, you talk about the normalization of drug use. It's happening in New York City, too. Have you guys seen these posters on the subways there talking about fentanyl use? Don't be ashamed you're using a drug. You are empowered that you're using safely. We got just a minute here, so we'll go to Kira and then to Amber on this. But, this is, again, like those cracked window issues. If you normalize this stuff, you're only going to get more of it. Kira, first to you, and then Amber.
This is why we don't turn to government for solutions to personal problems, to individual problems, because government is always going to make money off of those problems. Right now, the homeless industry makes a lot of money keeping people in their problems. They have no incentive to solve it. If they solve it, then all those tax dollars go away, all those voting issues go away. So this is why we shouldn't farm out issues like this to government.
It's hard to believe, Amber, that poster is actually real.
It's crazy. I mean, the government is enabling these people to do their worst personal habits. I mean, the Biden administration recently was funding so-called safe smoking kits, which included crack pipes. I mean, and the California government was allowing people safe injection sites for drugs. So they're not actually helping these people. They're enabling their worst habits.
Yeah, they're just going to get more of the homelessness and the drug use. And again, $100 billion budget in California, Mike. How is that even possible? Lots of questions there. Amber, Kara, and capital gains tax, whatever they're doing out there to the rich folks. That's why they're all leaving. We'll see how long that surplus lasts. Guys, we'll see you in the next hour. Thanks so much.